Yo, what's going on, guys? Hope everybody had a good day today. So today's video, we're going to be talking about, some of the coding skills that you can't really learn in a boot camp or at a university, all right? So this is for all my entry-level folks out there that are trying to jump into tech. And it's hard to jump in right now because of the job market, all the applications that you have to vet through, and just the skills that you need to acquire to get these roles. Now, whether you want to go full stack, software development, front end, back end, anywhere in tech, entry-level positions are scarce right now. Point blank, period. It's unfortunate because even back in 2019, you were able to get a job like that. Like you could apply to all these jobs, you could do all these interviews, and you had more of an abundance of opportunities to land a job, whether you're entry level, junior, senior, a lead. It was easy enough to do. Now, with the addition of AI, with the addition of people just out here applying to remote jobs from anywhere in the world, and not having some of these people that are doing these boot camps too, some of you guys are not really getting the skills that you need. And you're putting that on your resume thinking that that's going to be the end goal, but ultimately it leads to rejection after rejection. So in addition to the skills that you learn, whether it's through a boot camp or a university, I'm going to give you guys a list of other skills that you need to know immediately. The number one thing that you guys need to do, okay, this is very important. All right, you have to understand reading legacy code. This is just code that you wrote to build something. It's not perfect. It doesn't follow like a standard. You just pretty much build something to get it out there so that it's on your GitHub portfolio, that you have something that pertains to your skill set. And the more projects that you build over time, the more skills you're gonna start to acquire, the more understanding of the fundamentals you're gonna start to acquire. Then what you could do, say for example, you built an app like 3 months ago, and you wanna go back to it because you've been building apps consistently month to month. You go back to that one app, and then you start looking at the code itself and refactoring it and adding new functionality to it, right? And clean it up, change variable names, change some function names, change the way you're fetching data. This is gonna show how much you've grown. So be used to reading legacy code. Like any engineer that has started from the entry level and moved their way up, this is the first lesson that you need to know, is legacy code. Code that just looks terrible, but after a while, you start to understand the cadence of how code should be written. It's easy to read and you can follow the flow. It's gonna show between your commits for that project. So make sure that anything that you build, don't make it perfect. Just get it out there, let it run. Then after a while, once you start to get more projects under your belt that solves a real world problem, go back to those apps and start refactoring and keep doing this process every single time you learn something new. Number 2 is debugging, okay? If you can't debug, you're gonna have a problem, because all engineers do on a day-to-day basis is debug software, debug code. If you're fixing a bug, if you're building something new, you're gonna run into problems. You're gonna run into issues where it's not gonna compile correctly, not gonna run. It might cause an infinite loop somewhere, you have to fix it, cause a data leak. You gotta figure out how to debug those things. If you can't do that, that's a problem. Because we're all about solving problems every single day. And if you can't solve a problem, if you can't go to the console log and debug your code and understand exactly what the error is, that's an issue. If you don't understand networking issues with APIs, why you're getting a 504 error versus a 404, or getting a 403 error, what's the difference between those? If you can't understand that, you really got to go back to the basics. That's very important. So you need to make sure that you work through debugging actual errors and issues and finding those issues and tracing that down. The biggest thing that you could do is if you're using the IDE of choice. It could be Visual Studio Code, it could be Sublime, anything. Okay, make sure that you are able to create breakpoints in your code. So when you compile it and run it in the browser, you put a breakpoint to where the issue is, and it will run through the actual function. Then you could trace where the data flow is and where the error is actually happening in real time. From that point, you're able to just go in, make the change, and continue to test. If it works, good. If not, you got to do a little bit more digging. But get comfortable with the console on the browser, get comfortable with the breakpoints, and making sure that you can run it locally, and then anything that you're doing in the UI or in your program itself, you're able to trigger those breakpoints, okay? Number 3 is working on a massive code base. Now, the way to do this, honestly, I mean, if you're working on your own projects, you're not gonna really be able to do this. Some of your code your code base is going to be relatively small. So I would say look into like a library or like an open source project that's on GitHub that people are actively fixing things on it, and look at the files that are being maintained and updated on a day-to-day basis. Understand the folder structure, understand the coding style, right? What is this component doing versus this component? What is this file doing versus this file? You're gonna have good code, which is like everything that's refactored, and you're gonna have legacy code, which is all of the old stuff that still works, but no one wants to touch it because it's gonna open up a can of worms or break functionality. It happens all the time. So this is what you would consider with legacy code tech debt. Depending on how much of good code that you have, you could still have a little bit of tech debt. But if it's more tech debt that's causing a lot of issues, you have to take care of that, okay? But this is gonna give you an idea of the actual, what it takes to be a developer in understanding what files needs to be changed and the flow of what files connects to what, you know? So if you understand that, look at an open source project, get yourself familiar with how they have everything laid out, and you could then pick bits and pieces of what that project has done and use it for your own projects, right? And using this will be great because you have an open community of developers that are actively enjoying updating these open source projects to make them better because they use the tools every single day. Number 4 is writing clean, maintainable code. Now, like I said in the beginning, your code is not going to be perfect, okay? Especially if you're coming from a bootcamp or a university. Some of the projects that you are going to have, especially in the bootcamp, going to be working with other developers, and they're going to teach you how to write code the right way, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's clean, right? And you don't have to be 100% perfect with this. You could create your own standard of what clean code is. It's very simple. For me personally, it's just variable names needs to be correct, right? I need to understand what those variable names are. If you're using a function multiple times in multiple files, you should create a utility function for it to where you could just export it from one file and the same logic applies everywhere else. You know what I'm saying? Keep your code a lot more maintainable by understanding what's being used the most. Put it in a separate file so that you could reference it in different ways throughout your app. And you'll easily maintain that because all you have to do is update one file instead of all these other files that references the same function. That's where it gets tricky. So if you know where there's going to be a function itself that's going to be doing the same thing, that's going to be solving the same problem, put it in a utility file and store it there. And it's going to save you a lot more time trying to trace down issues. You could just go to the source. Okay? So this is very important. Understand how to maintain your code correctly and write code efficiently to where it solves a problem a lot faster. All right? Number 5 is collaboration with the dev team. Okay? If you did a boot camp, you probably collaborated with your peers on this, right? Like, who's going to be working on this component? Who's going to be working on this part of the project? How can we solve this problem? This is collaboration. If you're not able to collaborate on a day-to-day basis, there's no way you're going to get a job. Point blank, period. So you need to understand communication. And I preach this on my channel all the time. Communication is very important. I'll tell you right now, like coding, yes, going to be great, right? You're going to learn a lot of things. You're going to be building a lot of great stuff. But at the end of the day, if your communication skill sucks, you're not going to move up. You're just not. This is key to you getting to where, if you want to become entry level first, right? And then move up to junior to senior, communication is going to help you with that. And understanding the code itself, understanding how to solve problems. So if you're able to communicate and collaborate on those issues and know when to surrender when building something, because you can't solve the problem, and reach out to someone that knows better than you, that's communication in itself right there. You're saving yourself a lot of time, a lot of headache, and just sitting there just not happy, right, with the result, and being mentally fatigued because of it. So always work on communicating with other people. Make sure that you understand technically how to communicate with an engineer versus a non-engineer. I used to run into that problem all the time, where I would talk to someone that knows nothing about tech, and then I start talking in terms of tech, and they're looking at me like, what are you talking about? You know what I'm saying? So if you're able to break that down into like easy to understand phrases to where they could understand the flow from like an engineer to like a regular person, what the flow is, and then they give you that validation that they understand it, that's a win-win right there. So I had to really work on that. So that's something that you guys should work on when talking about your job. Don't talk about the technical details. Break down what the technical details are about in the simplest form to where it's easier for anybody to understand. Number 6 is, this is very important, using Git beyond the basics. What I mean by that is how to create a branch. What's the branching strategy? If you don't know how to do branches in Git, you're gonna have a problem. The biggest issue is that not a lot of people know how to use Git in the command line, how to deal with merge conflicts, how to use CI/CD pipelines like Bitbucket, right? Or GitHub Actions. I mean, there's a lot of different ways you could do it. I mean, if you wanted to create your own pipeline, I mean, there's a lot of free tools out there that would allow you to build a project using a pipeline. You got Vercel, you got Netlify is another one too. That's very easy to do. And you could play around with those tools and create different steps within your pipeline to either run unit tests, like build out the entire app, run the resources, the code base, make sure that it's built, and then run unit tests to make sure that you have total coverage of it. Now, I have my opinions on unit tests, but honestly, if you want to use unit tests, go ahead. It's not a big deal. It just gives you extra coverage on if things are failing and things doesn't match, you can fix those issues and they call it out, all right? But you could create those steps and use Git to do all this stuff, right? So once you understand that, you should be golden, because a lot of these software development companies, they use CI/CD pipelines. They automate the process of pushing code to different branches in the environment, to where the resources and everything else that's under it, whether you're dealing with the full stack or just purely front end, is going to be pushed to the correct branches, whether it's QA, dev, or the production branch. All right. You understand that, you're going to be good. But get yourself familiar with how to use Git and the different ways you can use it for, like I said, just creating branches, cherry picking too, merge conflicts. You understand that, you'll be set. Number 7 is balancing speed versus quality. Now, if you work for a startup, you're gonna be just throwing shit over the fence. You're gonna be just throwing shit over the fence and hoping that it works. That's just how a startup is. You got to get things done a lot faster. And as the startup starts to mature, you can slow down a little bit and make things more proficient for the dev team. This is very important. So if you're going to work for a startup, be prepared that you're going to be throwing a lot of code out there to build something. It's not necessarily going to be correct, but it's going to work. And then you got to refactor it later. You're going to be doing a lot of refactoring because you're going to be doing a lot of growing, learning, understanding what tech stack works for that company, and you have to pivot sometimes. With a bigger company, I mean, they're going to have some slow code and then you have to refactor it. It only becomes a problem when other users are having an issue. So you're going to get into that cadence of, okay, I need to fix this now and refactor it to the standards that you guys have set. It is part of the game. Because trust me, as a beginner, you're going to be throwing shit over the fence. And you're going to find out real quick. And then the last thing is mental blocks. Every dev has gone through a mental block. What I mean by that is you're working on a problem, you're like, I don't even know how to solve this problem. And you're spending hours and hours researching the topic, trying new things, and you're not getting anywhere. The way you would overcome a mental block is very simple. If you're spending more than 45 minutes on just solving a problem, you need to take a break. Either take a break or ask someone else for help. And there's nothing wrong with asking for help. Some devs want to do it all on their own. I used to be the same way. Hey, I'm going to do all this stuff on my own. I'm going to get all this stuff done. And I'm going to prove that I know how to code because I wanted to, I started off as an entry-level software engineer and I wanted to prove myself. To be honest with you, the ones that move up the quickest are the ones that ask the most questions and know when they can't solve a problem, reach out to someone for help. With the addition of AI tools out here today, you should be able to do that. My advice to you, if you have a mental block, walk away from the computer, go outside, get some fresh air. If you're working in the office, go to, just walk, talk to a coworker, do something, take your mind off of it, then come back to it. Don't keep spinning your wheels on this stuff because you're not going to get anywhere. And also spending hours and hours on the same problem, you're wasting so much of your time. 45 minutes is all you got. Call uncle, it's okay. Ask someone for help. That's it, guys. That's the video. Those are the skills that I wanted to share with you guys so that you guys are successful when it comes to just jumping into tech. You know what I'm saying? These are the skills that are very, very important. This is something that I had to learn the hard way. And I want you guys to understand, like, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. All right? You learn these skills, you understand the ins and outs of software development and what it takes to be a developer, you're going to be set. And hopefully you'll get a job out here because I know it's tough. Trust me, don't give up and just do the best you can. So if you like this video, please like, share, subscribe. Let me know how it is in the job market right now. Did you learn anything in your code and using Coding Bootcamp or at university, right? When you got your degree, are you able to get into the workforce and actually start coding and building something? If not, bro, you got a lot of work to do. It's not that easy to get a job right now or to jump in. So you got to put in some work. All right. We'll talk soon.